Hi, this is Tobias Forge from the band Ghost, and this is my Rolling Stone UK interview. At some point before I go into an album production, I have already decided production with the writing process and production. You always have this MO that you're gonna work within. But I continue to write all the time. It's just that you might not do it with in the same scheduled manner. When I'm in album production, I'm gonna be like working Monday to Friday. You work fast and you do things. You have a progression chart. Where you're working down towards a goal. Whereas when I'm done with a record, now I'm in a phase of I'm just about to begin a tour of a record. Anything now is just piling ideas. And piling ideas might be everything from like, this is a word that I like, this is a sentence I like, this is a riff I like, this is a completely arranged song I'm very pleased with. So by the time I end a tour and I'm about to make a record, it's various degrees of like finished, completely done songs to just a word. And then I have to sort of figure how do I get this whole thing to work together? And then again, you need that guideline. First song written on this album, probably Mycelia Mori, because that's quite an old song. It wasn't called Mycelia Mori. It has never been called Love Rockets. But that was like the working title for some time as soon as the vocal pattern came in. Or the vocal pattern has been there forever, but as soon as I started working, I just the way I work is also like I slap on stuff just to. In order for the vocal line not to be like you want to have words, and then more than often those words changes, but they might be awfully similar to what was originally there as just like a joke lyric, and Love Rocket sort of just stayed there, and then kind of a cheesy title. I'm not going to call it that, but I can translate that and call it Mycelia Mori. Means same thing. Great. And this is the sort of playful thing you do. This is how it works all day long when you're making a record. Just playing, and playing with ideas, and that's how I keep it fresh. And a ton of my ideas are me simply joking around with music. I come up with little bits and pieces that might be more me walking on the street, just sort of coming up with lyrics in Swedish. That's like a Swedish, what we call like a couplet about something, and then all of a sudden like that's a really catchy melody, and then I just have to rework it into something that's more understandable. And that might be one of the reasons why our music is quite diverse and different, because I don't necessarily sit down and like, I'm gonna write me a heavy metal track. I had done a record previous to Skeletá that was called Impera. Impera was written to a large degree inspired by external worldwide events. The whole record was loosely tied in together by critiquing or shining a light onto social or parliamentary, if you will, but just structure, and the idea of empires and the faulty elements of empires, and ultimately its possible demise. Demise doesn't necessarily mean that like the Egyptian empire just folds and disappears and just remains in ruins. It just means that empires are sort of constantly changing and into different variations, but obviously if you're a proponent of one Reich and that Reich turns into a different one, that might be the demise of you, and you might be sort of counted out of the new one. And that's how it's always been. So where the old record was very externally sort of accusatory of other things, I felt making a new record that it felt extremely not important, extremely unsexy and uninspiring to make an Impera 2, just because there were plenty of fodder to be influenced by current events. I felt that that's not what I need, and by extension, that is not what I think my fans need. That's not what the world needs. And I wanted to make a record that was more introspective and more representative of core human elements and core human sentiments and the things that make us human and alive, instead of focusing on demise and death and destruction. And that felt like a very enthusing theme for me, and now when the record is there, I feel that that's exactly what I want to contribute with as we move forward. My lyrics are, of course, they across the albums have varied from more fiction to very personal, and on this album, one of the more personal lyrics that is closest to the heart and I guess like an almost as outspoken sentiment as it can be is Cenotaph. Everything is personal, but Cenotaph is probably the one that I can really point at, like a personal connection, a way for me to handle. In this case, Cenotaph is about the idea of someone passed away, and simply the idea, so wonderfully sort of depicted in the film Coco. If you want to see a simple, nice explanation of the concept of death and remembrance. Someone who's passed away is alive inside of you. As long as you and people remember that person, he or she will be alive in some essence, ether. And then we can debate all day whether or not that soul lives someplace else or if we will reunite. But as long as we're living and we don't know exactly how things are, I think that the concept of memory living inside of living people, memory of dead people living inside of living people, is as close as we can get to feeling that there is a connection to another dimension. Even though I wish for there to be another dimension, but we don't know that yet. We will all get to know that. We'll all learn one day. But right now you're living. The song Umbra on the record was written quite late in the process, even though I have maybe ideas in the song, but it's compiled, and it was purpose made for the dramaturgy of the record. At that point, it was evident where we started and where we were going to end. And there was a song that was going to end the record that is called Excelsis. A bit on a low note that felt not climactic, and throughout the various concepts and themes throughout the record, where each the one thread is basically hope and what it's like being alive, and all these ingredients that makes life what it is. And one of the most important things I think that really speaks to one of our most primordial urges is the idea to obviously meet mentally and intellectually and soul wise, but it's also physical contact and physical explosion together. And I just wanted there to be sort of an towards the end climactic coital song about banging, because at the end of the day, that's one of the driving forces that has obviously since day one of human existence has been high on the priority list, and it makes most people quite happy, and especially the idea of it. So it's actually quite a positive subject, and it felt like a great end scene where Excelsis that follows is more like a credit. That's the sort of the song that's the sort of the song playing in the end credits, if you will. But Umbra is like the final fight, the final flight or the final battle on the record, but positive. There's a misconception that I wrote the record on the media about blackout. That is not true. But I did, however, deliberately shy away from the immediate media. As I said, like before on the previous album, that was very influenced with everything that was going on. I felt that was not needed on this one. The media blackout I have been mentioning is the one I had from the beginning of November and onwards, simply because I needed to cleanse my soul from stupidity and focus on what my role is as a human and what my job is. And my job as an entertainer is to make as many people happy and motivated and joyous as possible. And my job as a husband and father is to take good care of my children and my family and try to take care of everybody working with me and for me, and just make sure that I am constantly, as everybody should, just like try to do a little bit more good than you do bad, and try to be a little bit more positive than you're negative, and try to say a little bit more nice things than you say evil, mean things. And doesn't mean that you're supposed to be perfect, but it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I'm gonna do what I am here to do, and I'm not gonna bury myself into the, I think, dead end that a lot of people are now feeling, up in arms about. That social media and modern day way of communication has led a lot of people to believe that they can magically change the world, and in a way that in the past, even though social media has done tremendous good for a lot of people, and especially when it comes to structural change, but it also has given a lot of people the false hope that their voice actually matters no matter what, and if they can't use that voice and it is not heard, it's like a right that has sort of been taken away from them. And I think that when something like current events, especially in November, happens, I think a lot of people simply get their dreams of being able to change the world is shattered. And that's not simply true, because each person, almost every person on the planet, have the ability to some way or form, like some way to change their world. To extent you can change the world or the immediate world around you. But you do that by doing progressive things. If you do positive things to others, positive things will hopefully most likely come to you. And if everybody starts doing a little and starts trying to feel that a positive world and a progressive world is the way to go, slowly and steadily we will walk towards that. There have been moments in my life where I felt that there was some sort of unexplained, unrational contact with the void. I am, contrary to somehow in some circles, popular belief that Ghost is, like as a band, the band Ghost is, somehow dismissive of religion or like a completely atheist agenda. Actually, not. No, I think that one of the most important things that if mankind could unite in the idea that there very well might be a force and things that we cannot explain, and that we can completely accept that there are things that we don't know, and that might be larger than we can articulate, instead of what is happening now and has been happening for a few thousand years, where people tell you how things are or what's going to happen after death. They're lying. They're lying to you. That's the problem. They want you to do something. And if we could agree that we do not know, but there might very well possibly be some divine, otherworldly power, I think that is a great way to move forward and for mankind to finally rejoice. I grew up in a very musical home, or music-loving home, so I've always had a wide range of influence, and my taste has always been relatively voluptuous, and I like a lot of music, but as an adolescent, and when I started playing in bands, and where my pop cultural sort of belonging is in the extreme metal community. That's where I learned, that's where a lot of my aesthetics come from. I think that some people who are unaware or not interested in what metal is, and especially in the death metal and black metal world, I know, even though they might be interested in Ghost, I think that Ghost might come off as a little bit more exotic and strange than it actually is for someone who comes from my scene, where a lot of these aesthetic attributes and themes and visuals is very much part of the mainframe of what we're doing. The community itself has undergone like a quite cool, I don't know what to call, like an expansion, since depending on where you count, but if hard rock really started with like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and is still being on a daily basis, new bands are being formed, and on a daily basis, or at least on a weekly basis, every Friday there are new records coming out in this genre. It is a hugely non-ageist genre, where you have everything from senior citizens to little kids who likes heavy metal music. So it's a very friendly community, and at points, of course, it's when it's been sort of youth driven and as opposed to now, but in the 80s, I think it was a little bit more youth heavy, where youth was calling the shots, or young bands were calling the shots. So of course, the adolescent vibe might have I wouldn't say tainted, but because I love that stuff, but I understand from an outside point of view, it might come off as a little bit too, like, immature at points, but that's part of it. If you don't like blood, don't go to see boxing games. And if you don't like metal, don't go to a metal show. Like, if you don't like what it means, and yeah.